Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA on your very favorite podcast channel. And we are welcoming all of you who are joining us today as we're talking about progressions and breakthroughs of what we know about Alzheimer's and dementia. And, this is a concerning topic to so many families that may have a loved one that may be recently diagnosed, or, are you at risk if you had a parent or a loved one or a grandparent that had Alzheimer's? Obviously, there's things we're learning. And so we're obviously very thrilled to have Dr. Shawn Weiss back, who is an Alzheimer's and dementia specialist expert. She works with families, and she's here to share a lot of information that you may not know about the breakthroughs that are happening, the awareness, what we're learning. And so, Dr. Shawn Weiss, welcome back to Answers for Elders.
Thanks, Suzanne. It's always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am thrilled you're here because, dementia is something that we don't talk about. There's this deep fear of what if I lose my, my cognitive abilities, all of those things. And yet, we don't necessarily know what's going on in the world of scientific research, what they're learning and everything like that. I'm curious, what are we learning these days in research for Alzheimer's?
Well, one of the big things, and as a certified dementia practitioner and a trainer in the realm of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, I'm always a lifelong learner. And I think everybody's a lifelong learner, but especially when it comes to prevention and wellness. And there's been a really, great publication that's been out for a little bit, but what I found fascinating about it is it really addresses some modifiable risk factors as part of a global study that's being done. And it's called the Finger study, which is kind of a funny name. It's Finnish. There's the F, right? The Finnish study. It's a Finnish Geriatric Intervention Study. But it's really like the first global study of its kind that's ongoing still, actually. 25 different countries are participating in this study. And what they're finding is that they are looking at specific modifiable risk factors, and they've identified 12 of those in this study. And different countries are participating. United States is one of those countries. You have Australia, China, Japan, Finland, obviously, where the study's originating. Right. So at different times, some might be doing 2-year studies, some might be doing 3-year studies. United States is doing, theirs is a 2-year intervention. But the important thing is what they're doing in all of these, each country kind of modified their own, but they're all taking kind of normal age people between 60 and 79 who do not have any diagnosis of cognitive impairment, but have the risk factors associated with possibly developing dementia or Alzheimer's disease. And they're looking at the prevention and modifying these certain risk factors. And I think the research is so important. I think there's some valuable things that the public can learn from this. And, you'll find that when we talk about these risk factors, a lot of them it's not just they're only associated with cognitive impairment. These are risk factors that really affect, chronic disease risk,
exactly.
Things that you're not going to, they're not going to be surprising. However, putting it in a global study of this kind, I think is pretty cool. So they're finding that there's some different programs that they're recommending. And I think it's just really great to share that. So
great. Well, let's, when we talk about global studies, that's a fascinating thing because obviously dementia is prevalent throughout the world. We think about it here in the States, but I'm assuming, with the breakthroughs they're making, is there any ethnic or cultural differences what they're finding?
Well, they are looking at all of those things in those particular countries in terms of modifiable things. And those risk factors, that's including that in those risk factors as part of what they're studying in each of those countries. So risk factor wise, things that you've heard of. They're identifying 12. And I think that, to me, I'm like, absolutely. Hypertension, has high blood pressure.
Yep.
Smoking is number 2.
Wow.
I think that's,
vascular,
you think about vascular issues, decreased blood flow, decreased wound healing. I mean, all of these things that are associated with smoking. Type 2 diabetes, which is huge. Obesity, which can even go along with the type 2 diabees.
Right.
Social isolation is a risk factor.
Not using your brain.
Definitely. And we talk about that. Yeah. That a lot of people will start withdrawing as they start, declining with memory and activities and things like that.
Right.
Alcohol was a big one as well. Cognitive activity, being stimulated, doing things that are stimulating, whether it's conversations or brain games or things that are challenging you to maintain activity. Education levels is something that they're looking at. Hearing
Education, huh? So just understanding that, wouldn't that be tied to using one's mind, the learning part, the section of the brain? Is
right. Or the lack of, a lack of availability of resources and things like that. And I think there's a lot that goes into that component of education that they're looking at, whether not just like what's your level of education, or is it more, are you in an area that you just don't have that available to you? The resources.
Well, and it's also when you're talking about like marginalized communities, they don't get the access to care, at least in this country, that those that are privileged. And that's one of the.
Yeah, that's true. And I think that'll be really interesting to see as they come out. Like I said, right now there's 25 countries, and there's other countries that are, set to start participating as well. So this is an ongoing study, which I think is truly fascinating. So hearing loss, huge.
Yes.
Hearing loss.
I have heard that.
And we think we might have talked about that before. If you've had a head injury, which I think is kind of, self-explanatory, that would put you at risk for that. If you think about the football players, right, and all the concussions and all of those things that leads to early onset of cognitive impairment. Lifestyle, which they really are talking about physical activity and exercise. And then the last one is air pollution, which I think is going to be amazing to look at, because you think about that, then we're talking about, for my functional medicine stuff, that's fascinating, because then you're looking at pollutants, you're looking at toxins, you're looking at, things that you're breathing in the air, all of those things.
Well, and it's interesting
will definitely contribute.
Because I would bet a lot of that, when people have been in the workplace and breathing toxic chemicals, how does that affect them long term? And I know that there's been some studies out about, those that have been, or military, like Agent Orange and all those things that happen. It's interesting, very interesting.
Well, and you look at, for instance, another easy thing to look at, look at 9/11, some of those first responders that ended up getting lung cancer from the dust, from the debris, and the cleanup efforts.
Yes.
I mean, something like that, especially, it's true. And then, with those 12 risk factors that I've identified, it looks like, each of the countries are kind of looking at different groups of those risk factors that they're kind of pulling in to study. So it's pretty cool. Like the studies is a very long study, and I read it. So there's only so much time in the day, but I'm a geek like that. So but in the nutshell, what's really cool is we're going to be getting lots of really great data, and it's going to be ongoing data. And I think that's super important to keep following.
Absolutely.
To keep following that.
Absolutely.
And with that, with the risk factors, there's another institution called the Lancet Commission. It's the Lancet Commission on Dementia, Prevention, Intervention, and Care.
Whoa.
So what they have done, So what they've done is they've developed this lifestyle plan. They call it a multi-domain lifestyle plan that is addressing those 12 risk factors of like, okay, what can we give people, or what's the lifestyle plan, that people can, let's break it down. Let's make it something easy, right? So they have a 20-week lifestyle plan, and that lifestyle plan, they kind of broke it down into 4 components. And the first one is modifying your diet and nutrition, food intake. We
Totally
know
makes
that. We
sense.
know the
Yep.
importance of, as we age, getting proper nutrients, vitamin deficiencies, all of the above, right? And looking at, what do we know now? I mean, we know in this United States, gosh, that's sad, right? The standard American diet full of processed foods. So diet was the first one. And then the second one was exercise routines. And the third one was stress management.
Yep.
And then the last one is support groups. So part of this, part of this 20-week plan, and we'll talk about that in the next segment, is breaking that down, was really looking at having people interact and having accountability and having people, kind of a tribe of people on your team as included in part of this 20-week intervention plan. It's called a modifiable, it's got a multi-domain, which means it's covering different areas, and not just one. So pretty cool stuff.
Well, it's very interesting when you talk about globally, and I'm assuming, I'm going to ask the question that, do they address, is the population segment comparable across the world? Are there different areas, like say tropical climates different than northern climates, anything like that? Does that affect anything?
I'm looking here at a couple of my notes. I don't, I can't imagine that they're not looking at some of those variables. For instance, you have Australia and China, United States, Finland, where you have, just such a great variety of cultural, differences, that those are going to be part of that. And I'd be interested to see what comes of that.
And Shawn, you've got information on your website, do you not? Tell people how to reach you.
Seniorhealthandwellness.org is our website. There's lots of great free resources on there. You can also reach out to me, but I have all kinds of guides on dementia, Alzheimer's, courses, great references, all of those available for free on that website, seniorhealthandwellness.org. And then my email too is shawn.weiss@seniorhealthandwellness.org.
Well, and we're very excited to just help people that are dealing with Alzheimer's and dementia, and how do they get the resources that they need. So thank you so much for all the resources that you provide. And Dr. Shawn and I, we will be right back right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.